Are any of you old enough to remember when RFK Jr.'s decision to enter the presidential race was celebrated by conservatives and Republicans alike? Well, I sure am, and I sure do, but times have changed. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. All right, folks, this is hilarious. I love it. Again, it's just a case of like Schadenfreude basking in the fear and anger and outrage of hypocritical, unprincipled Republicans and conservatives in the media. So here's the situation. RFK Jr., Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the nephew of President Kennedy, he is both simultaneously a climate change activist, which is good, but more recently and more prominently, he's been celebrated as an anti-vax conspiracy theorist, which is really, really bad. Well, not too long ago, he publicly entered the race to challenge President Biden in the Democratic primary. And Republicans and conservatives, they were so happy, and they wanted a robust race. And they said, listen, there needs to be a competitive primary. This is good. Anybody has a right to run for president as long as they meet the constitutional qualifications. More options are better, etc., and so forth. Unfortunately for RFK Jr., and really good for democracy, he didn't gain much traction in the Democratic primary, even though President Biden has his own electoral challenges. So, not too long ago, he decided that he was going to run as an independent, RFK Jr. He was going to drop out of the Democratic primary. He was going to run as a third-party independent. Well, then Republicans and conservatives in the media, like Fox News, for example, they started to get really, really nervous because that alters the dynamic. Okay, well, RFK Jr. could theoretically, especially with his high name recognition, be a third-party spoiler. But then the question becomes, well, who would he spoil? And people started to make the argument, well, he might be a spoiler for Donald Trump. He might actually undermine Donald Trump's chances of beating Biden in the general election if he runs as third party instead of undermining Biden. I wrote an article about this several days ago on Luke Beasley's website, lukebeasleyshow.com/news, how it's hard to predict RFK's entrance, how his entrance as an independent challenger, how it might alter the election, right? And even now, I'm not saying that it couldn't go the other way, but there's actually a compelling case to be made, I think, that Republicans and conservatives hadn't considered, that RFK Jr. could be a spoiler for Donald Trump, especially, again, given his endorsement of conspiracy theories, his anti-vax stances, his refusal to publicly really criticize Donald Trump. All of these things could make him sympathetic to a Republican base who oppose vaccinations and endorse conspiracy theories, but may not like certain aspects of Donald Trump. Well, a new poll came out from a top-rated pollster, and based on the responses, based on how it's going now, Kennedy being a viable third-party challenger is going to increase the likelihood that Joe Biden is reelected in 2024. The poll has Biden at 44, Trump at 37, Kennedy at 16, okay? And this is huge, okay? And we're going to play a couple of clips here in a second because Fox started to see the writing on the wall, and it manifested itself in a funny way. So one of the head pollsters pointed out, although it's always tricky to assess the impact of a third-party candidate, right now Kennedy alters the equation in Biden's favor. Lee M. Mergenoff, director of the Marist College Institute for Public Opinion, which was the place that did the polling. What this does speak to, however, is that about 1 in 6 voters are looking for another option, particularly independent. And again, right now, it's not looking really good for Donald Trump as long as Kennedy remains in the race. Now, I want to remind just the whiplash. This is how Kennedy used to be treated by the Fox propaganda network, including some of the most prominent right-wing propagandists like Sean Hannity. He hosted on RFK Jr.'s behalf a town hall. He wanted to enhance RFK Jr.'s name recognition, make him more prominent and credible among the voting base. And this was in response to, and RFK Jr. played along. Let's be very clear about this, okay? So during the town hall, Sean Hannity played a montage of many of President Biden's gaffes and then asked RFK Jr. to comment on it.
Okay. Do you believe that he is physically, mentally, cognitively strong enough to lead our country? This world is a dangerous place. Robert Kennedy Jr., you know that this is a dangerous place. Is he cognitively strong enough to be your president?
Well, he's never been very good with words.
So, okay, this is just one clip in which there is a chummy dynamic between Hannity and RFK Jr., and the audience loves him. Now, in the aftermath of his decision to run as an independent, this is how Sean Hannity treated Kennedy then.
I mean, by the way, I'm giving you comments that you made in 2016, 17, 19. Endorsements, we know the years Gore, Kerry, Obama, Hillary, Bernie Sanders. They're all recent quotes. The NRA quote you made about calling them a terror group was 2018. So these are recent positions you've had. That I'm not sure why the Democratic Party wouldn't allow you to compete.
Do you want to talk about my position, Sean?
Yes, sir.
Do you want to read talking points from the Trump campaign?
Well, excuse me. These are not talking points. These are called Hannity points. I do my own research.
So again, folks, I mean, you should watch that full interview if you have the stomach to tolerate Sean Hannity having a conversation or speaking at length for more than 2 minutes, because he sandbags RFK Jr. RFK Jr., I think, was expecting this warm reception, the same sort of warm reception that he had been getting from Sean Hannity before. But now he is a threat to the reelection of Donald Trump, who, despite multiple indictments and being an incompetent, corrupt, authoritarian, dictator wannabe, Donald Trump remains competitive with President Biden in polling. So listen, I'm not saying that this couldn't go the other way as we get closer to the election. There's also Dr. Cornel West to consider. He is also running as a third party. Spoiler, we don't know how that will impact the dynamic. But I just think it's funny that Republicans and conservatives and the Fox Propaganda Network cheered on. They wanted RFK Jr. They're so happy. Thank God you're getting in the race. And again, the more options, the better. What's the Democratic Party got to fear? I mean, have a competitive primary. I mean, all of the same logic which applied then applies now in the opposite direction. But the reason they're upset is because it's working now based on the available data against Trump, and they cannot abide that.